Welcome to the Empowered Women Life Leaders podcast. I'm your host, Karen Bashford. This podcast is for every woman who has ever felt limited by her past, silenced by trauma, or held back by society's expectations. Each week, we will share powerful stories, expert insights, and practical tools to help you become the leader of your own life.
Today, I have a lady who I met through networking. Her name is Aga, and she's an independent financial advisor. Today, it's going to be slightly different way of running the podcast, simply because Aga does something special as far as I'm concerned. She educates women who have been through divorce or financial challenges, have children that perhaps they think they will never be able to get a mortgage or financial support as such. Aga is the person who does the extra mile to try and help that kind of woman. But it's not just divorced women, it's women full stop, and men, but we focus on women. So today, Aga, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce your name because we tried before and I stumbled like there was no tomorrow. Nothing unusual for me though. So Aga, welcome. Please introduce yourself and just share a bit about your background so we understand where you're coming from and who you are.
Thank you so much, Karen, for having me on your show. It is really, truly an honor to be here with the Empowered Women Life Leaders community. I love the sound of that name. Empowerment has been one of the themes of my life. If you follow me on any social media, you'll probably figure that out pretty quickly. And yes, my name is Agnieszka Augustyniak, but I do go by Aga just to make it simple for everyone to remember. Aga for short is just fine. And I am an independent mortgage and protection advisor based here in the UK. And I do specialize in helping people who don't always fit neatly into standard boxes that lenders tend to work with. The usual. So the income must be there, maybe the second income must be there of a partner, the self-employed or not self-employed, the foreign national or not, all the difficulties that sometimes we need to overcome in order to prove to the lenders that we are worthy of them lending us the money that we need to buy our property, the property that we want, actually. So I actually help people to also rebuild their financial reassurance, their financial mindset, especially, just as you mentioned, introducing me, when people have been after a hurdle in life. And let's be honest, who doesn't have them? Who doesn't have a hurdle in life? And there's more and more people overcoming difficulties and overcoming family issues and background issues and trauma issues. And there's just a bit of a need of an understanding that if you can just a little bit tweak your mindset about finances, you can actually be fine, do all right. And it does not have to be such a big Himalayan mountain to overcome, as most of the society would believe you that is the case. I am here to tell you that is not the case. How did I even come to become a mortgage broker? Maybe that is something to answer, because really my before mortgages, this was a bit of an unusual route for me, because before mortgages, I actually spent nearly 20 years in corporate publishing. This might come as a surprise to some, but I did my bachelor's at an American university, publishing with a minor in business management, and later I earned a master in science in counseling. And I loved the idea that the written word, when done well, could actually empower people. So I worked with educational publishers for a long time, shaping content that helped people learn and grow. That was the key for me, because I was the receiver of that content myself when I was growing up. And that content shaped me into a person I then later on became. So, and then in March of 2015, I moved to UK simply because I did fall in love with someone who was already here in Dorset. And I made a simple choice then. I do not want to move to Oxford or London or Andover just to get a job with a publishing house. I wanted to stay by the sea, by the New Forest woods, and build a life here in Bournemouth. This is where I am located currently. So I shifted into property management first, and then after COVID, I very quickly moved into property finance. I passed my 3 exams with London Institute of Banking and Finance. And what surprised me, even though I think it shouldn't, is how well my attention to detail that I brought over from the publishing translated into finance. So reading lenders' criteria carefully, spotting the nuances, finding the right fit for someone's unique circumstances, all that detail really matters just as much as mortgages as it does when you're doing the books, writing the books or preparing them to be published. So that was quite surprising, and I like that bit actually.
That says a lot, and the fact that you came from Poland to the UK to actually live, I think it's wonderful, because to move for the reasons that you did is a challenge in itself. So it's inspiring the fact that you were prepared to do that, and you're still here many years later and obviously enjoying what you're doing and in your relationship. So as a woman, I have been through so many challenges financially that you mentioned rebuilding confidence, financial confidence after a life disruption.
Yes.
And you mentioned about, obviously, very much the mindset is important, simply because, as I well know, if you're not in the right mindset, you're not going to start seeing things in a different perspective, or even considering that the no that you get isn't necessarily the no. That can be changed. You can find somebody else if you're prepared to go outside the box. So I want to talk to you about, particularly when home ownership is not the right answer right now, because as we well know, mortgages interest rates have gone sky high. The lenders are pulling a lot of offers and things like that. So your time is probably very, very taken up at the moment trying to find other options for your clients. How can a woman, especially a woman that's perhaps been in a relationship and financially has had her situation changed, what's the best way for her to approach getting a mortgage, apart from coming to you?
Well, I believe very strongly that if there is a decision to be made and you do not have the proper information to make that decision, that is the first step you need to take to educate yourself. Because when you know what's ahead of you, what are your choices, what are the options on the table, it's much easier to make that decision. And it is definitely a decision you can then make with confidence. And I truly believe that every client who is signing on the dotted line of a mortgage offer, they need to understand what they're doing, and they need to know why and how and what are the steps, how their life is going to change down the road with this particular offer. But the confidence, you can do your homework yourself, or you can join your efforts with someone who has the answers, who is well versed within the lending criteria world of various lenders, not just high street. I'm talking specialist lenders, and all the lenders available on the market here in the UK today. This is why you need an independent advice on that. So I think it's quite tragic that so many people think that it's not doable, that they cannot have home ownership because it's too complicated, because they are alone, because they just went through a divorce. or bereavement of some sort, or a job change. That is all not true in most of the cases, okay? There has not been a mortgage yet I have not been able to place. If a client comes to me with complete honesty and they put their cards on the table for me to see what is the situation, what are the options they have as of now, and what is it that they need to move forward, I will definitely sit down and move through the whole set of procedures, whole set of lending criteria, just to find that one answer that would fit their circumstances, because that is the key of a proper advice. It has to fit your circumstances, your individual set of circumstances. So in our culture, renting is often framed as throwing money away. And I'm here to challenge that here today, because I do not really believe that. Renting can be a valid and a very strategic choice, especially when it preserves your flexibility, your liquidity, and your mental health. How important is that in life? If you're rebuilding after divorce, after, say, navigating a career transition, or simply needing time to let your credit score settle, renting with intention can be far wiser than rushing into a purchase that stretches you way too thin. So what does renting with intention look like in my mind? It means using that time deliberately to increase your income, to build your credit, to save, or simply wait for a life stage to settle. And I want to acknowledge that for women rebuilding after loss or upheaval, letting go of a home ownership, even temporarily, can carry real grief. And part of my role is to sit with that honesty and help create a realistic plan forward. That is what you need, a plan forward, one that you can believe is doable. That said, for renters who are ready and simply lack a deposit, there is currently on the market one building society that offers a track record mortgage. That is a 0% deposit mortgage designed specifically for renters. And yes, you heard me right, it is a 0% deposit. So if you can show you have paid your rent on time for 12 months out of the last 18, this lender will use that as evidence that you can manage a mortgage and lend you the full purchase price with no deposit required. How good is that?
Wow, that's a good deal, that's for sure.
Yes, this mortgage is usually, it is a 5-year fixed rate, so you cannot get a shorter term. A property value can be up to 600,000, so within the London area, that would be something to consider. It is available for houses and even new build flats. You cannot have owned a property in the UK in the last 3 years. And you need a clean credit history with no missed payments in the past 6 months. Maximum borrowing is typically around 4.5 times your annual gross income, and it can go over a term of up to 40 years. And the lender offers this also to shared ownership purchases. And on that note, let me just quickly explain what shared ownership is, because I come across very quickly that people do not understand that there is an option like that on the table nowadays. Basically, it means that you purchase only a percentage of a home, and the other percentage, the one that you're not purchasing, that is staying with the housing association that you will be renting that part from. So you essentially are getting a mortgage on the part you're buying, and you will be paying a rent on the part you're not. But this particular product is designed in such a way that you can buy up to 100% of the ownership of that property with time. So given sometimes people do not have a deposit or have lesser deposit or have lesser income on monthly basis, there is an amazing way to get onto a property ladder that makes you instantly a homeowner. So that is the shared ownership, and 0% deposit is also available for the shared ownership option. So that would be my take on renting or not, actually.
So, as a shared owner, are there many properties available for shared ownership, or are they just specific types, or
There are houses, yes. So there's big market for it, and I think it's going the way wages are coming, and the way taxes are increasing, and the way inflation rates is increasing, the way just the whole economic market is evolving here in this country. I think it's becoming more and more popular, because for families who are struggling to put away sizable deposits, shared ownership can be definitely that first step onto a property ladder. It does not mean you're stuck with a shared ownership purchase, a house, and you might have questions even whether if I want to move, how quickly will I sell? Will there be a demand? And the answer is yes, there will be a demand. The only thing to remember with 0% deposit, when you're getting 100% lending on any purchase, that means you do not really leave yourself much of a buffer. So you need to really considering the high risk of the fact that with the way the economy is unfolding, there might be a drop in value of a particular property, whereas the mortgage you'll take 100% of the value at the time of purchase is still staying with you. So you're running a risk into moving into a negative property value. But these are options to consider simply if you just, you're always short on that deposit money.
Well, that's a useful one to know, because I'm sure, as you say, with the way the mortgage market's going and financially situations unfolding, at least that way you know that there is an option available. Because, like you, I don't consider renting a waste of money, because it gives you that space that is your own for a start off. And for so many people, me personally, Mum and I, as much as we loved each other, living together was not an option. So it gave me option, it gave her the option to own her own place, but in some way that I could be close enough to her to be able to help her when she needed. So Aga, tell us about situations. I know from experience a lot of women do not take any kind of protection because they think they can't afford it, or it's not something they fully understand.
Yeah.
Can you share a bit about the importance of setting in place protection?
Yeah, that's interesting, because it's the kind of a conversation people often avoid because it does feel uncomfortable, and they are either convinced that if they take it, it will be a waste of money because providers will never pay out when they really will need the payout when an event happens, and they just think it's just a waste of money, especially when the budget is tight on month-to-month basis. But it is also one of the most caring things that we can do for ourselves and for the people who depend on us. I'm talking here about income protection, life cover, critical illness, and there are a few other options to consider as well, but let's just focus on these three key ones available on the market that I believe everybody should consider. And you don't have to start with owning the world, so to speak. You don't have to go for all three. But if your budget is small, you should at least consider income protection, especially if you're a single earner within a household. So they are not these covers are not about being morbid or fearful. I do frame them as self-care and responsibility, and it may sound as very serious wording, but it really is that serious. When you are a sole earner in a household, protecting your income is not just about you, and you need to remember that. And I think you are, when you are in that situation, you are very much aware of it. It's about ensuring that if life throws something unexpected at you, your home and your family are not put at risk. So for single income households, that matters even more, much more so. If you are the only one bringing in the wage, and you become too ill to work or need time to recover, there is no second income to catch the mortgage. And that is when the income protection can step in to replace a portion of your earnings during that time. And usually that is between 60 to 75% of your net monthly income. And that really varies from provider to provider. And also think to remember that that income then, that payout based on the income protection policy is not taxed. You're not paying tax on it. And then we have life cover. And that is when, if the worst were to happen, if you were to die or to be diagnosed with terminal illness, the mortgage is fully cleared with this cover in place, and your loved ones stay in home. They don't have to be afraid that if something happens to you, they will have to sell up and move out. That is not the case with this cover. And then the critical illness cover, that actually gives you a lump sum if you're diagnosed with a serious condition, giving you space to focus on recovering rather than, worrying about your finances. So that is just a very brief, very short overview of 3 options readily available. And I do believe that single income families are the families that should consider these the most.
I'm going to ask you a question that I think is probably going to be very relevant in the coming months with the increase in the mortgages that are already in place, and obviously the increase in so many other things, that food even, that is going to impact a lot of households, whether they're single or couples or with children. And that is, if they genuinely are struggling, what's the best thing they can do for themselves?
Well, if you feel stuck and you do not know what to do, the worst thing you can do is to do nothing. That is right away a signal for you that you need to reach out for help. And if there is a mortgage that you're already paying and you do not know what to do with it, ask your mortgage advisor. If you don't have one, seek one out. And it doesn't have to be the first one you find. Seek through several until you find someone that you will feel like you can talk to them, and there is actually a receptivity on their side to your situation and genuine desire to help. Because they can instruct you, they can help you to perhaps talk to the lender with whom you already have a mortgage and use mortgage charter, which will basically allow you, if lender will agree to that, but you need to make that application, to stop making capital repayment on your mortgage and just pay interest only for up to 6 months, which will then, for amount of that time, lower your monthly mortgage payments, which can definitely give you a breathing space. The only thing here to remember is it's not like they're forgiving you the capital part of that monthly payment. It is being added back to the loan, and you are going to be paying interest on it, so it can extend your mortgage for longer. But at least in that space where you find yourself, you will see that perhaps instead of paying 1,200 or 1,400 pounds a month, you can be actually paying maybe half, or maybe less than half, or maybe more than half, slightly more than half. But either way, you have that breathing room. Of course, this is something that you need to have that conversation with your lender. And anytime you're actually taking on a mortgage, any lender, when you read your mortgage illustration carefully, it does say so that if you feel that you need help with your mortgage, you do need to speak to your lender, and they will have that conversation with you. And they are not in the business of taking houses away. They are in the business and seeing their best interest for you to actually keep that home and keep paying the mortgage.
Okay, I have a question for you that I just thought of.
Mm-hmm.
As a person that has been financially challenged, one of the things that I discovered is that it's always better to speak earlier,
Yes,
rather than later. Because if the company understands what's going on, it's, as you say, it's not in their best interest necessarily to boot you out of the property if there are some other way of dealing with the situation. So, as you say,
Mortgage charter
is something that's applicable in this case.
If you have a mortgage, it is definite, and you're struggling to pay it, you have two options. You can find a mortgage advisor to discuss your situation, and that mortgage advisor, given the knowledge he has and access to lending criteria and all the other templates that we have access to and calculators, they can very quickly assess your situation and give you some tips on how to deal with it. Or you can go straight to your lender. Although I would strongly advise first to speak to your mortgage advisor, because they don't just have one lender that they are dealing with. They have way over 100. An independent mortgage advisor should have access at this D&H, at this point in time in this country, to over 100 lenders, and they can see how to help you to structure your position so that when the time for remortgage comes, you can actually make that remortgage. So maybe not everyone knows that, but remortgage is when you get a mortgage, you get your initial fixed term, that deal that comes with a specific interest rate, which normally is much lesser than once that period runs out. So we have very, very well known 2-year or 5-year fixed mortgages. There are also 7 and 10-year fixed mortgages. We have 15-year term mortgages, and for that term, it's a set interest rate. Once that runs out and you do nothing, the lender is going to move you to a standard variable rate, which normally is much, much higher. And the standard variable rate, please do not mix it with the base rate of the Bank of England. That is not the same. Each lender has their own. They take the base rate of the Bank of England, and that is their base, but then they create their own on the top with a bit of a margin for themselves. And so usually, if you do nothing, your mortgage payment, monthly mortgage payment, will increase substantially. Let's just put it that way, without using specific numbers. But if you come to your mortgage advisor and they look at your situation, and they will then assess, is there a different lender on the market right now that they can move you to, help you to move to, where your monthly mortgage would be either lesser or stay the same if there is a threat that your interest rate would go up. And at this point, because of the geopolitical uncertainty that we're dealing with, the high inflation that is absolutely untamed within the last year or two, because of the oil prices increasing and all that, taking into consideration, the rates have stabilized. Well, stabilize is too much of a word, but they are more or less at 5.5% right now, which is much higher than we remember from last year. But it is not as high as older listeners would probably remember, where mortgage rates were at a level of 12 or 16% in this country. So those will vary, but it is up to you to be able to manage your mortgage so that when the fixed rate comes to an end, talk to your advisor as soon as 6 months prior to the end of that rate, where they can help you to prepare to either switch a lender or stay with the same lender. But it's really up to you what you will do with it. No one can force you.
No, as I well know. So, one last question. What do you love about your job?
Oh, I think it's the empowerment piece that comes with it. And when you realize that you can be instrumental for a family or even a single person to actually enjoy the home ownership without a fear that so often stand behind it. Can I do it? Can I not? Will I handle it for so many years? What if? There are options, and as long as you know what these options are, you understand these options, the decisions you will be making regarding the home ownership will come with confidence, and that is a possibility. It does not have to be made with fear.
And for me, I think I would say, having spoken to Aga quite a lot now, Aga gives you a confidence that states, I know what I'm doing and I will do my damnedest to help you.
Yeah, that is always the bottom line, to do your best. And that the ability to do the best always comes with the privilege of preparation for that opportunity when it comes. Because that's how I perceive every client that comes my way. It is an opportunity for both of us, for me to help, and for that family to have a new start, that they can actually enter into a new life, new chapter of their life with confidence. And that's what I love doing.
On that note, thank you very much, Aga. It's been very helpful to hear it from your perspective, how mortgages and renting and protection can be seen in a different light to so much that is perceived to be a problem for many people. So thank you very much for your time. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you, Karen, very much. Appreciate your time and appreciate the time of your listener as well. Thank you.
Thank you.